If you have to roll a 2+ to charge, don't roll a 1.
Hey guys, what's up? So this is game 3 of the tournament I participated in this previous weekend. This is the finale. And yes, it is Nords versus Nords. My Nord opponent brought a Warlord Shaman with Sacrificial Lamb. That was an issue that I had with him before the game. We chatted about it and I told him to stop doing Sacrificial Lamb in games because Sacrificial Lamb is opponent dependent and highly random on whether the Warlord Shaman dies, and round dependent. The round that you want the Warlord Shaman to die to give your whole army blessed for one round may not be the round that he dies in. It is way too random for top level tables at tournaments. Don't do that. Spend those points for Sacrificial Lamb elsewhere. You could give your Warlord Shaman instead Arcane 1, so you have that extra dice when rolling your Blurred Vision spell, or whatever you want to do, really. In the Warlord Shaman's Warband, he has Raiders with 3 stands, Raiders with 3 stands and a Captain, Mountain Jotnar, and a Sea Jotnar. Good so far. I'm not a big fan of the Captain, but hey, sometimes the Shaman needs a regiment to jump into for scoring purposes. But the issue is that if you give your Shaman Sacrificial Lamb, you want him to die. Now, having an extra medium regiment will help with scoring, but Nords don't really need help scoring in the mid game, which is what a medium regiment provides. I consider the early game turn 2. That's it. Mid game is 3 to, let's say, 5, and then 6 and on is the late game. And the standard by which I judge that is how quick you can get on objective zones or how quick you can start scoring. The next warband has a Blooded with the upgrades of Dragon, Prize, Silver, and Curse of the Vargir. This is another issue I have. Don't make impact builds. Don't do it. It's just not reliable. I mean, this is just a lesson for just war games in general. Any war game. It's not Conquest specific. You need to eliminate as much randomness as possible. Anything you do, basketball, baseball, you want to be consistent with your actions, and you want to eliminate randomness because you need to be able to foresee future outcomes of your actions so you can score and win the game. And if you introduce randomness into your planning, well, then your planning goes to pot. So get rid of randomness. And impact attacks are just way too random for Nords. They're not reliable. It's not like you're doing impact attacks with OD, Cataphractoi, or 100 Kingdoms, Ashen Dawn. I mean, these Nord impact attacks are not reliable enough to make a build around it. Now, would I like Nords to have some sort of infantry-based impact building warlord that makes them kind of cool? Yes. I don't want impact attacks in Nord that have a 10 march that flies across the board. That's Cav stuff. I don't want that. It'd be kind of cool if infantry had it, which Nords already do. It's our thing. But they're just too unreliable. Anyway, he has a Blooded with the Ogre, Mountain Jotnar, and another Ogre. And his third warband is a Vulva with Runes of Fate, Runes of Shielding, Tactical 1, Arcane 1, seems fine. And Valkyrie's 8 stands, good lord. You don't need so many stands in the Valkyrie unit. Just having 6 stands plus the Vulva gives you +2 to your resolve, and that's all you really need. Plus, the Vulva can cast a spell that gives her regiment +2 resolve anyway, which, believe it or not, I have used before, and is very useful as a defensive tool. And you don't need so many stands, it just makes it easier to break this regiment. And my list, right quick, since I've gone over it twice already in previous videos, I have a Warlord Shaman with Arcane 1 and Arcane 2. The Arcane 2 is just to help with padding out points in my list. That's really what it was. Also, I guess it helps with scaling, but that's really never an issue. My Warlord Shaman's Warband has 3 stands of Raiders, 3 stands of Raiders, a Mountain Jotnar, and a Sea Jotnar. Now, it's funny because both our Sea Jotnars are going to counter each other, which is going to be hilarious in the game. I have a Naked Jarl. It's the only way to run them, with 3 Raiders, and 2 Mountain Jotnars, and then copy-paste. Same deal, okay? You don't need a lot of stuff on Jarls. The scenario that my opponent and I played on round 3 is head-to-head, where you'll have this one 12-inch objective zone that'll get you 3 victory points for seizing, and then these 2 smaller objective zones that only your opponent can seize closer to your reinforcement zone. And you get 4 victory points for those as well. You also get 2 victory points for slaying the enemy warlord, character stands, and regiments. So this is a high-scoring game if you're fighting against a multiple small unit army like mine. This is the bottom of round 1. I Vanguard moved a Raider squad over here, and then I normal moved a Raider squad here and here, and I Vanguard moved a Raider squad here. I Vanguard moved this Raider squad because I have a medium stand here, and I want to get him on the point to score. My opponent just has his Warlord, which is a Shaman, and his Light Raiders, which he Vanguard moved up as well. Now, I have more activations than my opponent, so after we did this little dance here with all of our regiments, my vanguarding of my raiders here kind of perplexed him. And this little sheet of paper is the tournament organizer's terrain. All the terrain here pretty much has a bunch of rules. My raiders on the right have moved up even further. My opponent brought on his Valkyries automatically onto the board, and then he moved his raiders up closer onto the zone. I then brought my raiders up on the zone, and then just touched the zone with my medium stand. So since he has no medium stands and I have at least one medium stand, I captured the point. So I am up by a couple of points. I Vanguard move a Raider regiment with my Jarl over here. Back another Raider regiment just behind the front one. This Raider regiment right here is the counterattack regiment. So I'm presenting my Jarl as a tasty treat to score early and possibly be charged, and then I'll have a counter charge with this Raider regiment to flank attack. Now the flank attack will only work if his Raider regiment charged this one here, because if he charged this Raider regiment here, then of course they'd be engaged and I can't charge past them. So there are some options. I did do a little shenanigans right here. You see, once again, I like my little edge shenanigans. So if he were to charge this regiment here, he couldn't line up perfectly. He would be, you know, off angle. So this corner here, well, let me get rid of all the red arrows. This corner here, when he does his free wheel, he would have to somehow be able to charge because he has to clear this corner. But the thing is, after measuring his Raider regiment, if he were to attempt the wheel and then charge, he actually couldn't because he's going to clip this little edge right here. So I, in turn, made this regiment immune to charging unless he reforms into a square, but then I'm only taking the impact hits. I'm not taking the clashes. Or if he shuffles over 2.5 inches, same thing. I'll only be taking the impact hits and not the clashes. And if somehow he found out a way to charge, because of the angle, he'll be off center just a little bit because of the size of his regiment, leaving a little bit of overhang for then my regiment here to charge him in his flank. If you are a Nord player or just a Conquest player in general, it would behoove you to learn the minute intricacies of the size of regiments, the charge distances, the charge lanes, what can be countercharged, what you can't clip. This is all to protect you on the battlefield. So let's go on to round 3. Now, before we do that though, for whatever reason, during this game, maybe I was tired, I don't recall, but I didn't take as many pictures as I should have, and I did not keep track of the wounds I dealt to my opponent, usually with my tokens and dice. So from now on, this battle report is going to get a little bit more fuzzier on the particulars, on the concrete examples, but hopefully you'll get the overall breadth and the principles of what's going on here. Now we're into round 3. His Raider regiment went ahead and charged the Raider regiment I had right over here. Remember that one right here? And he killed him, which of course left me with my counter charge. This Raider regiment here charged into his side, forming this right here, okay? Even though I am missing one of my stands when I charged, guess what? I destroyed this regiment through impact hits and just fighting. So he killed my regiment, and then I killed his regiment with the counter charge. Then his Valkyries that are right here charged my Raiders, right? Like this, or however the formation is, and then killed the Raiders here. So he did a counter charge. As you can see, the Valkyries are right up here. And with his Valkyries in this position, which just killed the Raider Regiment that was here in the flank, my Raider Regiment with the Jarl charged forward and destroyed one of his stands. On the far end of the table, he brings on his Raider Regiment right here. And then I move my Raider Regiment up and I attempt the charge. And guess what I got? I got a 1 and I failed the charge. So now we're just kind of here in his back lines, just staring at each other. And these Ogres are not in the game. So now round 3 was over. I did not take a picture of the state of the round. This is now round 4. My Raider plus Jarl Regiment moved up and then charged into the flank of his Valkyries. And then he brought on his own Sea Jotnar. And his Sea Jotnar cannot clash, but he can throw a spear. Since this Raider Regiment is in the front facing of his Sea Jotnar, he threw a spear and killed a stand of dudes. Just, boom, mashed them into the ground. He brought on his Ogres from the flank and moved his Ogres far enough so he can threaten a charge next round. But his Ogres are now on the point, and they are all medium stands. So he's currently seizing this objective zone. And then here's the fun, folks. I drew this Jarl's card first and said, why not? I want to duel your Volva. And he asked me about the Jarl's stuff, and I told him, no, Jarl has no upgrades, no weapons, nothing. He has a stock Jarl. But I'll tell you, he's going to kill your Volva just naked. And if you've watched my dueling videos, I've always advocated, never make dueling builds. It's a waste of points. You do it for fun with your friends, cool, whatever. But in a tournament setting, don't do it. It's a waste of time. You only duel when you know your base character can beat another person's base character, right? And his Volva is 155 points. And my Jarl is 80. But the 155 points that the Volva got are upgrades for the Valkyries. None of them help the Volva out, really. So I told him my Jarl will eat your Volva for breakfast. Get it? So he denied the duel and broke the Valkyries. And then later in the round, I drew my other Jarl's card, and it occurred to me like, oh, hold on. I didn't plan on this, I really didn't. Hey, I'm going to duel your Volva with my other stupid Jarl. And he could not deny it since his regiment was broken. And guess what? The Jarl took 1 wound, and he flipped the Volva off the table. He's like, get out of here. All of his bonuses, all of his buffs, all of his upgrades are now gone. This is how the battle looks at the end of round, I believe, 4. I then Vanguard moved my Mountain Jotnar to counter charge next round his Ogres. And I had more activations this game than he did. More cards. So I could always stack cards after him. Here on the right, he also brought another regiment of delicious Ogres here with his Blooded. And remember, this is the regiment that's all kitted out to charge and do impact hits. My opponent did not give his Blooded the Redbringer, which allows you to charge when you arrive from reinforcements. Sure, it gives you Bloodlust, but the whole point of this combo is literally this situation right here, where he would just come off the board and then charge and then kill whatever he wanted. This would have been the one time that combo would have worked. But he didn't. Instead, he went for an impact build, and guys never make an impact build as Nords currently are. It's a waste of time. And then as a counter move, I brought from the turn 4 reinforcement edge another Mountain Jotnar to counter his Ogres here. So I have a Mountain Jotnar countering Ogres on the right and a Mountain Jotnar countering Ogres on the left. Round 5, I activated my Mountain Jotnar first. He charged in. And in the tournament for the terrain, this wheat field is just obscuring. It's not hindering, but we both played it as hindering. So my Mountain Jotnar did not get his impact hits, nor did he get his inspiring. And I still brought the Ogres down to 1 life left, because he's counting up. And Ogres, it feels nice hitting it feels nice playing an army where I could hit them with a cleave. And there's no shenanigans, there's no harden, there's no defense 50, there's no I ignore resolves. I just hit Ogres. The damage, it goes through like butter right into the resolve. It felt really nice. This is how you people must feel when you play against Nords, huh? So in this picture here, What had happened was he activated his Valkyrie and they killed the regiment with the Jarl that was on the objective zone. Then I activated my raiders over here and did some more damage to the Valkyries. Now my Jarl did die fighting over here, doing some more damage as well, since the regiment didn't activate. After the raiders here activated, he activated his Sea Jotnar, charged the raiders, and then killed them. So that is what happened over here. So now he holds the center of the board. Because the raider regiment was dead, he reformed his Ogres and then charged my mountain giant, doing 3 impact hits, or 3 wounds total after his impacts. I then brought on my Sea Jotnar into the center of the board, and he threw his spear. Now, my Sea Jotnar came on with the Vanguard move, so it moved 21 inches up the center of the board, and then threw his spear onto his Sea Jotnar, dealing a couple of damage. And then I finally brought my Raider Regiment with my Shaman up into the center, just so I can start mucking up the center of the board, helping to contest the zone. I couldn't hold the zone, but I could contest it. It's trying my best, right? And my opponent brought on 2 Mountain Jotnars, here and here. So we're getting Jotnar'd up. We got Jotnars everywhere. My Mountain Jotnar activated and killed 2 of his Ogre stands, leaving an Ogre stand with 3 wounds left. Remember, it's the one counting up. There's 3 wounds left. And this is the end of round 5, I believe. My opponent brought on his new artesian modeled Mountain Jotnar over here because he wanted to charge my Mountain Jotnar over here. As you can see, there's like a little bit of lippage that he can do so. My Raiders on the right side of the board charged his Raiders finally and then killed them. So I cannot seize this objective zone because they are all lights. And this is how we are currently positioned. Oh, his Ogre and Blooded did some damage to my mountain. The Blooded was out of position, so he can only support with 1 attack. But my mountain took some damage. Moving on to round 6. My Sea Jotnar finally had enough of his Sea Jotnar shenanigans. Charged him and killed his Sea Jotnar. He activated his Vulva. He needed a 2+ to charge. And we measured this multiple times, as you can see by the picture. And guess what he rolled? He rolled a 1. So when you need a 2+ to charge, don't be a Valkyrie regiment. So I failed a 2+ charge, and he failed a 2+ charge. So we're washed. I think in every game of this tournament, someone has failed a 2+ charge somewhere in the matches I was participating in. So that was very unlucky for him. The game would have been very different if he would have made this charge. His mountain giant that was here charged the Raider regiment I had that was right here with my Shaman Warlord and killed him. And then I had to trap his Mountain Jotnar as long as possible so my Mountain Jotnar right above my head could do some work. I reformed my Raider regiment because this engaged Ogre regiment was blocking my charge, and I charged into his mountain, doing him 1 damage after impacts. I'm not here to kill his mountain. I'm here to stop his mountain from charging my mountain. That's all these raiders are doing. That's it. They're not even there to charge the Ogres to kill them because I could have killed his Ogres easily. The problem is, if my raiders kill the Ogres, then his mountain would kill my mountain or my raiders. And I need to keep as many of my regiments alive as possible, especially in this corner. So I charged in, and I'm now holding up his mountain. I also brought in from reinforcements with vanguarding from the side of the board, hard to see, another Mountain Jotnar over here. And this Mountain Jotnar is now facing this way to threaten whatever he needs to threaten. His Mountain Jotnar activates, and through very unfortunate rolls, he only killed a single stand of raiders. Yes, you heard that right, folks. Let's move on from that travesty. My Mountain Jotnar turned and charged his Mountain Jotnar, dealing, I think, only 3 wounds through impacts. I had to move, or I had to reform to face or something, I forget what it was, but I only dealt a couple wounds to his mountain. And this is what the board looks like at the end of round 6, going into round 7. I had brought another Mountain Jotnar during this round, right here. So now I have 3 Mountain Jotnars all chilling on this side of the board. He has his 1 Mountain Jotnar locked up by raiders over here. And I brought in another Mountain Jotnar from the reinforcement line just to touch the zone. He also has 2 Jotnars and then a couple of medium Valkyries, so he scores this zone. The one mistake I made was bringing the Jotnar here instead of bringing the Jotnar here, because there's a lot more going on here. I figured with my 3 Jotnars and my C I could do some damage, but he also has 3 large regiments as well that can do some damage to me, so we're pretty even here. And I don't like, if I'm playing more regiments than my opponent, I don't like my fights to be even. I have to overwhelm him with numbers. And here on the right, I think I went overboard. It's because these zones are worth 4 and these zones are worth 3. And I didn't mention this because I wasn't keeping track of it during the video, but he's outscoring me throughout the entire game because he's killing more of my stuff. So he's up by like 10 points or something. And this is we're going to round 7, I believe. So I'm fighting from behind pretty much the entire game. I know it's rare that I do that, but you know what? Sometimes kings fall, what can I say? But can I pull this from the brink and win the game? I don't know. I'm behind by like 10 points. Okay, so what is going on over here? A lot of stuff is going on over here. There's figuratively no regiments on the left side of the battlefield. Why? Let me explain what happened with a previous picture. My Mountain Jotnar here charged his Mountain Jotnar and killed it. Okay? Then with my Mountain Jotnar here, his Valkyrie regiment charged my Mountain Jotnar. So his Valkyrie regiment is now like this. Okay? And then killed my Mountain Jotnar. We got it, right? With his Valkyrie regiment here, my Sea Jotnar charged and killed his Valkyries. So my Sea Jotnar is now right here. Then his Mountain Jotnar activates and kills my Mountain Jotnar. That is the chain of events that happened here, if I remember it correctly, which just leaves these two just staring at each other. And I did not take a picture of it, but over on the right side, his Mountain Jotnar activated and killed the Raider regiment. This Mountain Jotnar activated, charged his Mountain Jotnar and killed it. And then my Mountain Jotnar started booking it westward, with one of them staying on the objective zone for 4 points. Then in round 8, my opponent went first, and his Mountain Jotnar charged my Sea Jotnar, killing it. This Mountain Jotnar is the only regiment on the left side of the battlefield on this objective, and our scores are very close. He's ahead by a certain amount of points, I forget exactly, by like 3 or 4. So I realize I have to book it across the table to try to get this zone. I need it to win the game. So over the rest of round 8, 9, and 10, this Jotnar is sitting on the zone to score me 4 points around. My other 2 Jotnars are running across the battlefield, and then my opponent realized, or we actually talked this out, that our scores were so close that no matter what he did here on round 9, he could have stayed here, right? And then I would have charged his Mountain Jotnar, or at least moved my Mountain Jotnar here, even just to contest it, to stop him from scoring, or bring this Mountain Jotnar on the point, and then move this one 7, so that I could just charge him for impacts. He knew if I got this Jotnar on the objective zone, that he was going to lose. So he thought of bringing his mountain to attack me, but if he did, then he wasn't going to score this objective zone anymore, and I'm going to continue scoring 4 points for the last 2 rounds. So he was in unfortunately, a no-win situation, so we called the game there. But did I actually win the game? Did all of my explaining of the points actually matter? My opponent scored 38 points. Ooh, drama. And I scored a 4 and a 5. I scored 54. Nords on Nords were fighting, and Nords won. Anyway. The tournament was wonderfully organized by a Vanguard. Mr. Mike, thank you, Mike, for organizing this in Orlando. Much appreciated. It was a great venue, and you were a great host and a great Vanguard. Your rulings were on point. They were beautiful. You spent a lot of time setting these tables up, getting the terrain correct, making a wonderful, wonderful tournament. So thank you all for watching the videos. Don't forget to join my Patreon. I'm trying to hit 5 Patreons by the end of this month. I just need 2 more. So can 2 of you hop on my Patreon and support me to get more tactical Nord advice? Actually, just tactical advice altogether, right? It's rare that you're going to get tactical depth on Conquest because it's still a new game at this level anywhere else but with me. You know, other videos are great for their own content, but if you want to become an elite Conquest player, learn all the tips and tricks to win, you know, sub to my channel and join my Patreon. And then give me some advice on what videos you'd like to see next. Don't forget, if you need to roll a 2+ to charge, don't complain endlessly in a game like Jason.